This is Special Chronicles, giving respect and a voice to people with special needs.
I shudder thinking how the world can be so cruel. I lend my voice to those who can't. It's time we try, it's time we care, it's time we stand. It starts with a voice.
Welcome to the Special Chronicles podcast. My name is Daniel Spakowski. I'm the founder and host of Special Chronicles, an athlete leader of Special Olympics Illinois, and a former Southern Tribal Global Messenger. Our website, specialchronicles.com. Follow Special Chronicles on socials. Subscribe to our newsletter. Find the show notes for this episode. And yeah, specialchronicles.com. This week on the Special Chronicles podcast series, a recap of Turin 2025. Excited to welcome our guest, Nick Mills, a Special Olympics USA athlete who competed in Alpine skiing at the World Winter Games in Turin this past March 2025. Please put your both your hands together as we welcome Nick to Special Chronicles. Welcome, Nick.
Thanks for having me.
Awesome. It's exciting to have you on the program. We've had a few other athletes on this series, and excited. So for all of you that are listening in, by the time this episode airs, go back and listen to previous episodes of this series on specialchronicles.com/Turin2025 and hear from other athletes and a coach and staff, and a Southern Tribal Global Messenger was on. And so, yeah, excited to have you on, Nick. And you've been an athlete for 20 years. I think I've been competing about the same amount of time in Illinois here. And so can you tell us a little bit about your journey and how you first got involved in Special Olympics?
So my journey started when I was living with my grandparents, and we found out about the program about athletes with disabilities. And so we figured we tried to get me involved, and it helped me out. And made friends.
Awesome. You've competed in I think for a lot of us athletes, we've made through all the different sports that we've competed in over the years, and you've competed in a wide range of sports, from alpine skiing, like you just did at the World Winter Games, to basketball. What drew you to alpine skiing, and what has that experience been like for you over the years?
Well, for me, my grandpa started skiing, and when I found that out, I wanted to start skiing myself. And it's through him that kept me skiing.
Awesome. And did we'll get into your experience at the World Winter Games in the next segment. But before we get to Italy, you're also very active on the Special Olympics South Dakota Athlete Leadership Council and as a health messenger. Just like yourself in Illinois, I'm also on my state's Athlete Leadership Council and am a health messenger as well, and so that's and then I also compete in basketball, so that's something that we both share in common. How did you get involved in your Athlete Leadership Council, and what does that mean to you?
Well, for me, I started working at the state office And what the co-workers of that group, which she talked to me about joining the group and what they did, and that's what helped me lead into joining them.
Awesome. We're going to take a short break to mention how all of you listening in can support this podcast, and then we'll get into hearing from you, Nick, on your experience competing at the World Winter Games in Turin, Italy, after this short break, because it's free for all of you to listen, but the mixer plugged in and the audio and website hosting and all of that. So we'll be back after a short break right here on specialchronicles.com. This episode is brought to you by listeners like you. Please join our supporters with a monthly or one-time donation so we can operate our studio and continue our mission, giving respect and voice to people with disabilities, like Nick and myself and many other athletes across the movement. Visit specialchronicles.com/give. That's specialchronicles.com/give. And if you want to access bonus content, like the pre-show right before we started recording, you can join specialchronicles.com/plus, specialchronicles.com/plus to access that. And back to the show. So, Nick, the Special Olympics World Winter Games in Turin happened this past March. And so how did it take us back to when you first got selected to be part of Special Olympics USA? How did it feel to be selected to represent the country at the World Winter Games?
It felt amazing. I actually started crying when I first found out.
And what does competing at the World Winter Games mean to you? And did you have any goals that you set for yourself at these games?
Well, one of the goals was actually to get a medal.
Awesome.
Which I got here.
A silver medal, is that?
Yep.
Awesome.
And then what meant to me personally by I get to do what I love to do, and it's all about skiing.
Awesome. And I'm sure that there was a lot of just like in any sport, there's a lot of preparation that goes into. So leading up to the World Winter Games, what was your training like, and how did you prepare for the World Winter Games?
So when I first found out about going to team trials, I knew I had to work out to lose some weight. Because at the time I was over 200 pounds. But by the time team trials came around, I was almost 200, under 200.
Awesome.
And just kept that journey up by working out, walking and playing basketball.
Awesome. And yeah, I'm sure all that training helped you to be able to compete against other skiers from across the globe. Now, as we look to the when you were in Italy, what was that experience like when you first arrived, and what can you share with us a little bit about that experience?
Yes, I can. Just landing there just felt amazing. Getting to see all different athletes from all the country.
Awesome.
The opening ceremony was amazing because we actually had another representative from my state
that you saw at the opening ceremony.
Yep, they were the officers carrying the torch.
Awesome. So a couple of the officers from your state were awesome. And then what was the competition? What was the competition like? Because I'm sure it was probably a little different than when you were than when you compete back home in South Dakota. So in Italy, what was the competition like against the other athletes?
It was varying because some divisions I actually the youngest competing against the other athletes.
Neat. And is there a memorable moment from the competition and as well as from the experience overall that stands out to you?
The biggest memorable moment would be when I got the silver medal. I actually choked up and couldn't really talk.
Awesome. I'm gonna put you full screen, so for those of you watching on YouTube, you can see Nick's silver medal from the World Winter Games. Awesome. And it looks a little bigger than a lot of the local at a lot of your local state competitions. Those medals are a little small, but at the World Games they look a little. Is the medal is it heavier or how?
It is actually quite heavy. What do you expect?
Awesome. So again, I'll show for those of you watching on YouTube, you can see Nick's medal there. Awesome. As we're moving to just like so for any competition that we compete in, our health and fitness is an important part to the sports that we compete in. And your role as a health messenger for Special Olympics South Dakota is a unique and important one. Just like I've am health messenger too, so I know that just how important the role of a health messenger is. How do you incorporate healthy habits into your daily life, and how does that impact your athletic experience? I'm sure even when you were in Italy at the Winter Games, you probably still practice a lot of those healthy habits, and probably did you get a chance to go to healthy athletes when you were in Italy?
Well, where they had healthy athletes was back where opening ceremonies were.
Mm-hmm.
But where we were for 2 hours away.
Wow.
So you weren't able to make it to the healthy athlete.
All right, awesome. So, how can you share with our listeners how you incorporated healthy habits into your daily life, including during your time at the World Winter Games?
So some of the healthy habits were like healthy, and not eating too much, which I've learned, which helps me with the weight loss and all that.
Absolutely. Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah. Not like making sure that you don't eat a lot helps a lot. Is there any other healthy habits that you've used in your daily life?
Some of them include like making sure brush my teeth and exercise, which I keep walking every day.
Awesome. So you've been a part of Special Olympics for 2 decades now. What have you learned about the connection between your physical health and your mental well-being? I'm sure the strong minds, the discipline plays it into this as well. But what the connection between your physical health and your mental well-being through your sports experience, through competing in alpine skiing, and how what have you learned about your physical health and your mental well-being?
For the physical health, it's like to help when you're skiing. Make sure you're fit, and that you're able to go pretty fast.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
the well-being is just making sure you concentrate and you're more focused.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. As we move into your career and personal life, alongside your athletic endeavors, you've earned a diploma as a software support specialist and have worked as an administrative assistant for Special Olympics South Dakota. How do you balance your career, your job with your athletic goals? Like I'm sure, like going to the World Winter Games, there was a lot that you had to juggle between your job and then preparing for and competing at the World Winter Games. But how have you balanced your job and your athletic goals?
Well, with the South Dakota office, I help out with getting like sporting event ready to go. And along with that, they need to take days off to go. Let me take those days off.
Awesome. And it's inspiring to hear about your travels and how you visited over 20 states and 7 countries. What are some of the states and countries that you visited, and how has traveling impacted your perspective on life and your Special Olympics journey?
So I've been to Australia, which is the furthest I've been.
Wow.
Italy, Dominican Republic, and Alaska.
Awesome. And how has traveling impacted your Special Olympics journey and your life as well?
I get to meet a bunch of different people with different backgrounds, which helps me learn about how other people live.
Awesome. Well, we're going to go and take one final break, and when we come back, we will get into Nick's motivations and the impact that he had at the World Winter Games. After this short break, to let you know that support for Special Chronicles comes from ComEd Energy Force Ambassador Program, the country's first energy and solar efficiency education program designed for taught by people with disabilities. Learn more at specialchronicles.com/ComEd. That's specialchronicles.com/ComEd. And support for Special Chronicles comes from United Airlines Bridge Disability Business Resource Group, connecting people of all abilities, including hiring Special Olympics athletes like myself as employees. Learn more on United's commitment to disability inclusion for employment and travel at specialchronicles.com/United. At specialchronicles.com/United. And as we move into Nick this final segment, and as an athlete who has traveled the world and competed in numerous sports, most recently in alpine skiing as a part of Special Olympics USA at the World Winter Games in Turin, Italy. What message would you like to share with others, especially other athletes with intellectual disabilities who might be inspired, who might be empowered by hearing your story to today? If maybe there's another athlete that's tuning in right now who might want to have the same opportunity that you had to be able to compete at the World Games, what's a message that you would like to share with them?
So just keep training your hardest, and even if you think you might fail, don't give up.
Awesome. Great message. Yeah, I'm sure many. I know I'm empowered by the message, and I'm sure a lot of other athletes will be as well. And I'm sure we might have some listeners who might just be getting started in Special Olympics. There might even be some families or parents that are listening, and they might want to get their young athletes involved. What advice would you give to someone who's just starting the Special Olympics journey, or is considering getting involved, whether they want to get involved as an athlete or maybe or even with the law enforcement touch one as well? What advice would you give to someone to get involved in Special Olympics?
So basically, I would say that all the athletes love making new friends and meeting new people, and that when you join Special Olympics, you'll make more friends. And with the law enforcement torture run, I would say that they love doing all this fundraising. I'd say that they love doing all this fundraising.
Awesome. I think the audio cut out just a little bit. Do you want to repeat that advice, Nick, that you would give to someone who's just starting out on the Special Olympics journey?
So don't be afraid to make new friends, because athletes love making more friends.
Mm-hmm.
And with the torture run part, as an athlete who's helped out with it, they love to fundraise money for athletes like us, and even if you're not involved with Special Olympics, you can always help out.
Absolutely. Yeah, great thoughtful advice. I'm sure many listeners will be empowered. The past half hour has flown by. We've got one final question, but before we get to that final question, do you have any final thoughts on your overall time here today on the Special Chronicles podcast that you'd like to share with our listeners?
Well, it's actually I greatly appreciate you selecting me for this interview.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. It's always I've been podcasting the past 16, 17 years now, and it's always empowered to talk with fellow athletes, because what I've discovered through this podcast is many of our listeners are empowered to hear our stories and to hear from you, and especially about your what it was like to compete in at the World Winter Games. Thank you so much for taking the time. Is there anything else we may have missed that you like to share about the overall experience of competing?
Surprisingly, I was supposed to go 5 years ago to the Sweden Road Winter Games, but COVID happened.
Yeah.
There's supposed to be 2 years later in Russia, but we know what's going on there.
Yeah, and those were canceled. Yeah. So it's from the last World Winter Games, which I think was in 2017 in Austria, to now these. There was such a for these winter World Games. There was such a big gap. I'm glad that even after not being able to go, I'm glad that you finally had that opportunity to be able to go to the World Winter Games, because not that many athletes get this opportunity. So I'm glad that you finally had that opportunity. We've got one final question, and to introduce our final question, we've got a Bumble. So let's go ahead and roll that Bumble.
We're not just athletes.
We are the ambassadors of an uprising, peaceful protesters in a rebellion.
Difference. Our demands are
Equality,
dignity,
and the recognition of our
shared humanity. We will not stop or accept anything less.
Today, our world is
More divided than ever.
And coming together has never been more urgent.
The revolution.
It's inclusion.
Find out more at jointherevolution.org.
So ever since I attended the 2019 World Games in Abu Dhabi, I've been concluding with one final question that we, of course, we want our listeners to listen to these podcasts, but we also want our listeners to really take action and to bring inclusion back into their communities, to bring inclusion back into their workplaces, into their schools, into their special Olympic programs, and bringing inclusion back into their lives. And this question will help our listeners to be able to do that. And so just like I've done with other guests the past few years on the program, I'll ask you, what does inclusion mean to you?
Inclusion means that everybody is together and nobody is separated by the disability or other stuff.
Awesome. Powerful advice. We got a few final plugs for all of you that are tuning in. You can shop our merchandise store, our Disabled Voices Matter collection. We have t-shirts, hoodies, coffee mugs. 60% of the profits will go back to Special Chronicles. You can visit specialchronicles.com/shop. That's specialchronicles.com/shop, and tap that follow button and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, specialchronicles.com, specialchronicles.com/Turin2025 for this series as we recap the World Winter Games. We've got some exciting episodes for you all. You can, if you guys are listening to this episode, which will air at the beginning of May, you can go back and hear last week's episode with Natalie and Trey, who competed in dance boat. Also here with a coach, a snowshoe coach, also who competed in Alpine skiing along with Nick. You can hear from Grace Payne on Travel Global Messenger, as well as hear from Lou, the chief of sport and competition at Special Olympics International. And then coming up on this series in the coming weeks, next week, you can hear about the Global Youth Leadership Summit hear also about the Global Coalition for Inclusion, hear from one of the sponsors, United Airlines, as well as a volunteer. So lots of exciting guests for you all on this series. So remember to follow this podcast and subscribe on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and so you don't miss a new episode. It was a lot of fun talking with you, Nick, for the past half hour. Thank you so much for taking the time, and I'm sure our listeners are empowered by your story.
You're welcome. You're welcome, and thanks for having me.
Awesome. And until then, remember, choose to include, and we'll see you next week right here on specialchronicles.com. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Special Chronicles podcast. Our podcast was produced by Daniel Smukowski on the Special Chronicles Network. Follow Special Chronicles on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and YouTube. Subscribe, rate, and review Special Chronicles on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Our website, specialchronicles.com, where you can stream our archives of over 500 episodes for free. Also, there's a list of our favorites, original series, award-winning columns, and blogs. And sign up for our newsletter to receive exclusive bonus content delivered to your inbox. Again, specialchronicles.com. Special Chronicles is hosted by Podbean Podcast Hosting. Our live streams are powered by StreamYard. Thanks, as always, to our business manager, Adam Smukowski, who always encourages us to never give up. I'm Daniel Smukowski, back next week with more stories.
Special Chronicles, giving respect and a voice to people with special needs.